Hello, students. This is Priyanka Mishra, your history teacher, and today we are here to discuss about the next chapter from our book, part 3rd, and the chapter is Colonialism and the Countryside. So, first of all, what is the meaning of the word colonialism? Colonialism means for a rule by a country which has made some other country as its colony. And the word countryside basically means for the rural areas. So here, which rule is known as the colonial rule? Yes, the British rule. As we know that the Britishers made India as their colony, that's why the British rule in India is also known as the colonialism. And now, basically, what was the effect and the negative impact of British policies on the rural areas? That is going to be discussed by us in this chapter. So first, let's make our explanation a little more interesting with the help of this picture, which is a picture painted by George Chinnery in 1820, who stayed in India for 23 years, and he painted so many portraits, landscapes, and scenes of the everyday life of common people, jotedars, and moneylenders in the rural areas of Bengal. So the main concern is to know about now the rise of the jotedars. So who were these jotedars? The jotedars were actually the group of rich peasants. We know that during the time of Britishers, due to the permanent settlement that we have already discussed in the earlier video, the zamindars had to face many crises, and at the other side, the jotedars were getting chance to be more stronger. Now they were holding vast areas of land, they were controlling the local trade as well as money lending. They were also using immense power over the poorer cultivators of the region. Not only that, a large part of their land was cultivated through sharecroppers who brought their own plows, labored in the field, and handed over half of the produce to jotedars after the harvest. That means only the land was of the jotedar and all other resources and inputs were of the sharecroppers, and the produce was done as 50-50 to the jotedar and a sharecropper. Next, the zamindars lived in urban areas, whereas the jotedars basically located in the villages, and they were having the direct control over the poor villagers. They also opposed zamindars, who time to time were using to increase taxes. They deliberately delayed payments of revenue to the zamindars, and we know due to that the zamindars failed to pay revenue to the company under the clauses of the permanent settlement. In fact, the estates of zamindars were auctioned due to the failure to make revenue payments, and the jotedars were often amongst the purchasers. Rich peasants and village headmen were also getting strong, and they were also called as havaldars, antidars, or mandals. So here in this flow chart, you can very well see that how the company was based on the work of zamindar, and one zamindar was controlling so many villages. Under the control of the zamindars, there were riots. Under the riots, there were under riots. Okay, and now the under riots, they were now depending for the better conditions of their economy and their survival on the jotedars, who we can say they were rich riot. They were a trader and moneylenders. So basically, you can see that zamindars were responsible for paying revenue to the company, distributing the revenue demand over villages. Each village riot, big or small, paid rent to the zamindar. Jotedars gave out loans to other ryots and sold their produces. Ryots cultivated some land and gave out the rest to under ryots on rent. Under ryots paid rent to the ryots. That means you can see there is a proper pyramid system where one is controlling the other. Company is controlling the zamindar, zamindar is controlling the riot, riot is controlling the under riot. Okay, and jotedars, who are also the rich riot, they are also controlling the under riots. So basically this was a whole chain that was being executed in the villages during the company rule. Here is an example of a zamindar, Maharaja Mehtab Chand, who had to face the crisis of auction of his zamindari when he failed to pay revenue to the company under the clauses of the permanent settlement. And he also was an active participant during the revolt of 1857 and the Santhal rebellion. Both these revolts happened during the time against the Britishers. Now we are having the next topic, the zamindar resist. That means how could the zamindar resist their land from auction? Yes, we know that when the zamindars failed to pay revenue to the company, at that time the zamindars also played some tricks to protect a vast tract of their lands. So first of all, the authority of the zamindar in rural areas did not collapse. They found the way to secure from auction and made new strategies. And what were these strategies? First of all, fictitious sale was one such strategy. That is, first transferred some of his zamindari to his mother or wife. Then secondly, his agents manipulated the auctions. When a part of the estate was auctioned, the zamindar's men bought the property. They refused to pay up the purchase money and it was repeated many times. At last, estate was given to zamindar at a very low cost. That means at some way or the other, finally the zamindars could resist their own land by some fake bidding or by lowering down the price of that particular auction land through their agents. Next is when people from outside the zamindari bought an estate at an auction, they could not always take possession. Their agents would be attacked by lathials of the former zamindar. Sometimes even the riots resisted the entry of outsiders. They felt bound to their own zamindar and show loyalty. In the 19th century, the depression in prices was over. Those who had survived the troubles of the 1790s consolidated their power. Rulers of the villages known as the zamindars, they also made the revenue payment flexible. Then Great Depression of the 1930s finally led to the collapse of the zamindari system, and the jotedar could consolidate their power after the declining of the zamindari system. Now the next topic is the fifth report. So what is this fifth report? Let's have a look on this. The report that was submitted to the British Parliament in 1813, it was fifth of a series of reports on the administration and activities of the East India Company in India. It was at 1002 pages, of which over 800 pages were petitions of zamindars and riots, reports of collectors and revenue officials. In the mid 1790s, the company established its rule in Bengal. Its activities were closely watched and debated in England. There were many groups in Britain who were opposed to the monopoly that the East India Company had over trade in India. Many private traders, they wanted to trade in India and open the Indian market for British manufacture. The information about company misrule and maladministration was hotly debated in Britain newspaper. The British Parliament finally passed a series of acts in the late 18th century to regulate and control the company rule in India. It forced the company to produce regular reports on the administration of India. Also, the British Parliament appointed committees to inquire into the affairs of the company. The fifth report was one such report produced by a selected committee. The evidence contained in the fifth report is invaluable. So that's all for the day. We'll meet in the next video, next tutorial with some more facts from the chapter. Thank you.